Welcome everyone to the Women's Empower Network. I have Luanna with us today, and I can already tell this is going to be a juicy interview just from our pre-conversation. So welcome.
Uh, you here, guys.
So I always like to start out, for all of us to kind of get to know you a little bit, is if you could share a little bit about your story and journey that led you to what you're passionate about today.
Sure. Well, my childhood trauma led me here. I had a lot of it. And I always had an awakened sense to something more in life. And so from a very early age, I was connecting to nature. At 13, I read As a Man Thinketh and Joseph Campbell and, really seeking to make sense of my world. So I started on this personal growth development journey. Yeah, really, when I was 7, I had my first awareness. But then with age 13 is when I started going into meditation and saying, I need to figure myself out. I need to figure out, the world I'm being presented in so many ways at my home, the conflict, the pain, the strife, the traumas that happened. My mother left when I was 7. The same
Oh,
year,
wow.
my sister had a terrible horseback riding accident. She was in a coma for almost a half a year. So
Wow.
when she came out, she had to learn how to walk, talk, eat, write, sleep, everything all over again. And in that time, I got shuffled from neighbor to neighbor. So
Ouch.
basically, the 7-year-old I was lost the foundation of her identity. Because at 7, our family is our identity. We haven't yet sort of made that separation into our own self yet. And so that was a lot of trauma. And then I went back to school and then I got bullied and teased. Oh, I've got a cripple for a sister. I would go to school every day wondering who's going to threaten to beat me up after school, and it was very hard. My dad, he had to work. So he was working at CBC. So he had like 17, 18-hour days. So I didn't get to see him a lot. My mom, she had left and she was in the city. So she spent more time with my sister at the hospital, but I didn't see her very much, maybe a few days. So all of that combined with some other abuses that took place prior to that as well, it set up this question in me like, what is this? Why is this? And where is a deeper truth that I can connect to? Right. And then when I was 7, I was sitting in front of a TV show and it was about Jesus. Obviously a good one because there's bad ones and then there's good ones. Right? There's ones that really embody the teaching, not the
Right.
dogma. Right. So clearly this was one of those shows. I don't remember which one it was, but in the show, the guy said, just call on Jesus and, he'll come and help you. So envision this, me as a little 7-year-old crying in front of the TV. And I said, Jesus, whoever you are, help me. I'm in pain. The way a 7-year-old could, right? I mean,
Right.
I don't know my 7-year-old words anymore, but I remember the feeling, I remember the sensation, and I remember the anxiety in me and the feeling of lostness. And within like a minute of that prayer, I guess, I felt a warmth enfold me. And I felt better. And then my whole life became this journey of what was this warmth? What was this frequency that made me feel better? So, and that's when it led me to, I went to my grandma's house, I grabbed her Bible, I started sleeping with it under my pillow, you know, and then, when I was 8, 9, and 10, I started visiting my friends' churches because I didn't have a religious family. But I didn't find that feeling there. So I was looking, where is that feeling?
Right.
Where can I find it again? Where can I? And the place that I found it most was in nature. And then that led me to nature-based traditions. So I spent many years learning with a Peruvian shaman and several North American First Nation shamans and one from New Mexico. So that became my path. It like because the earth was already talking to me. And so when I learned their teachings, I'm like, yeah, thank you. I'm finally getting a reflection somewhere of what my heart's been telling me is true. And it's matching and it's activating that warmth to come alive in me. And then that led me when I was 18, actually when I was 14, 15, I lived off and on the streets as a street punk, as a goth punk. Yeah, so I panhandled the street corners, downtown Toronto, Spadina, Bloor, Eaton Center, but at that time, streets were not what it is now. It was like a
Right.
handful of lost kids, you know, that became family. Right. And so I wouldn't even want to imagine being in that situation now. So back then it was in the 80s, early 80s. And so it was kind of harmless. Right. So for 2 years, I went back and forth to home or friends' places and, living, sleeping in stairwells, sleeping in all night clubs, doing milk runs, taking milk deliveries from hotels in the morning, getting in fights with McDonald managers that didn't want to, serve us because of how we looked, and had tourists taking pictures of me and my friends. There's probably people around the world that have pictures of us, from in front of the Eaton Center and that. So, and then things started to change, and I started having a lot more challenges dealing with the family situations. And my mom had moved to Germany. When I was 8, she moved to Germany. So I only saw
Wow.
her once a month every year. And then, it just mounted, and then then I got to a point where I tried to take my life. And fortunately, in that moment, I put the pills in my mouth. I'd locked the bathroom door. I was at a friend's place at that time, and I was crying, and I put the pills in my mouth. I put the water in my mouth, and then I heard a voice say, "It doesn't have to be this way." And then me with my big black goth hair and black makeup streaming down my face, and God bless my sweetheart there. I spit out the pills that were in my mouth, and I curled up in a ball and I cried. And a friend of mine knew what I was going to do. That's why I had locked the door, and she'd call an ambulance. And then my dad came and he said, "Oh, you just want to have attention." I said, "Yes, I do. I need attention. I'm hurting." And then I went back home and I restarted my life. And a year later, I did a modeling training with John Casablancas in Toronto, and to build my confidence. It was like a personal development modeling training. I modeled for 2 years almost. I was a house model of Joyco hair. And then at 18, I felt a calling that my body just said, my soul said, I need to leave Ontario. I need to go to Germany. I need to go be with my mom for a bit. And so at 18, I left. And I went and I ended up staying with her for 1 month. But my mother, God bless her, she's passed away now. Her traumas led her to have some really deeply ingrained narcissistic abusive patterns my whole life. So, only seeing her once a year for a month, there would be a flare up, but then I would numb out and pretend that she's my best friend, right? For the rest of
Right.
the But then once I was there more completely, it was like, whoa, what's this, right? And so I only stayed a month with her, and I started working I did a practicum in a 5-star hotel as a restaurateur and hotelier. So that led me to travel and be in Germany, where all of my inner knowing was even more met. Reading the philosophers, because I was very philosophical, Hermann Hesse, Goethe, and all the different metaphysics and esoteric teachings that are very alive in Europe. They never died. Right. So over there, you can even be covered by health insurance for energy healing sessions. That's how progressive they
Wow.
were. Right. So for me, it was like I landed in exactly where I needed to go for my soul to thrive. So my journey has been a journey of seeking that and seeking that to heal myself, because those traumas left a lot of imprints. Those traumas left me feeling like if anything ever happened, it's always my fault. Right. Something wrong with
Yeah.
me. No matter what I achieved, it was never enough. It was always me who had to change, not the other. So these
Right.
are these are the foundational primed belief systems that formed in me through all that childhood trauma and those momentums. And so I sought out so many different healing practices, energy healing, movement therapy, expressive dance, massage, psychotherapeutic body work, and everything in order to overcome, to meet those places first, because we have to meet them
Right.
in order to heal them. Right. And so that's been my journey my whole life. And now life brought me, not with my choice, it's just sort of, it was a natural evolution to now work with other people and help women in particular, because I'm a woman and I understand the stresses of being a woman and the different emotional demands of being a woman, and the abuse, so those primed moments of feeling like there's something wrong with me, they primed me to be in a relationship with a narcissistic abuser for 2.5 years. Right? So
Yeah.
So, and that was, that was like, wow, okay, but the gift of that, and I always look at the gift and not out of
Right.
hyperbole or out of platitude, but seriously, I mean, there is suffering in life. That is a part of life. Challenges, we'll never escape it. The contrast, it will rub, it will create friction. But what I understand is every challenge that's ever come to me, and even especially the narcissistic abusive relationship, it was there to awaken me.
Hmm. Yep.
because because the only way he had power over me is because he was tapping into the beliefs I already had in me about me. So that's when I started doing my inner healing work. I was 22 at that time. We had a restaurant together in Berlin for 2 years, so that was a extra hook that made me stay a lot longer than I probably should have. But also at the same time, a lot of serendipitous events, like I met my energy healing teacher. She was a hidden master that you only meet if you meet. No marketing, no phone, no nothing. It was one
Right.
of the old school masters. And through being there, I met somebody I met another, and then I found my teacher, right? And I learned with her for 6 years. This remaining 6 years, I remained in Berlin and continued until she passed a year and a half ago, right? So understanding too the hooks of getting caught in a narcissistic relationship because of our inner trauma. I work with women a lot, helping them to come back home to their power. And it's about stopping blaming. It's a perfect match. If
And
if
what do
I
you mean a perfect match?
if I have these vulnerabilities and weaknesses in me, and that's exactly what a narcissist needs to thrive, we're a perfect match.
Right. Okay. Hmm.
We're a
Yep.
perfect match, right? And so instead of, feeling a victim of it, looking for, okay, well, where is my energy a part of it? And not as blame, just out of watching frequency dynamics, right? So that I could take my power back. And so I started doing the inner child healing, and I started recognizing, wow, these are just things I already believe about myself. Well, why do I believe these things about myself? What can I do to change that? And so that was my healing journey. And at the end of that experience, there was a day where, I started doing, because when I met him, I stopped doing my dancing, I stopped doing meditating, I stopped doing everything.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I had a
Right.
hidden altar under my bed, right? Because he was against it all, right? And there was one day I was like, well, how did I get here? Before I met him, I was independent traveling in Thailand and Nepal, and I lived in Switzerland, and I did all these things already. And then the day came up, well, how did I end up here? And then that's when I started putting the pieces together. And then, just before I finally left, I started doing all the things I love to do again. And he would never ask me how it went. And I'd say,
Well,
aren't you going to
yeah.
ask me how it went? And he says, why? What do I get from it? And I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. Okay. So these are little pieces I would start, breadcrumbs I'd be putting together of awareness. And then I realized the Achilles tendon hold he had over me. And so then one night in the restaurant, at the end of the evening, I was counting the cash, and he came out and he started trying to hook me into my Achilles tendon again. Because that would always bring me to my knees. I'm complicated. No one can love me. No one ever loved me like him, right? Those were the stories. And I believe my child self believed them. And because
Right.
I met him in a time of transition where I had a lot of hard knocks just before meeting him, I wasn't in my strongest self. So that's how he gained that access. So then he came out and he started doing that. And he said it again, you're complicated. No one can ever love you, blah, 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 blah. And I stood up from the chair. I looked at him, I put my hands on my hips. I said, yeah, you know what? You are right. And I love me for it. Oh my God. He just threw through the roof. He was like, ah! And I stood there and I went, gotcha. Just a matter of time. I nailed it. I went, okay. And so then 3 months later, a friend of mine who was going away gave me her apartment, and then I just started rebuilding a life. I had nothing. He sold everything. He sold our washing machine, sold my bicycle. Sold the TV. He went back to Indonesia. He was from Indonesia. So I had nothing. I had no work, no money, zero. So I had to start all over again. I was babysitting. I was a dentist's assistant for a little while. I was selling jewelry on the markets. I was doing just to rebuild myself back up, right? So I've been in some pretty compromising situations that really could have broken my heart and soul, and they break many people's heart and soul.
They do.
But it's that connection that always informed me that no, there's more. And no, I can use this to grow. And so that is basically what led me to do what I'm doing now. And to
That's
have
beautiful.
and I have my through serendipity, I have my dream retreat center now. And if 8 years we're celebrating already, which is amazing. And now I'm launching into more online coaching and things like that. So I'm expanding because I witness how much what I share, it just transforms people like in an hour sometimes. And a part of it is just because they can feel my empathy. I know I'm not just a
Right.
text, right? I'm like, I get it, and that's often the main ingredient we need. We don't need to be analyzed. We need to be seen. We need to be heard. We need to be acknowledged, and then so that's a big part of the work. And then I integrate all the different healing modalities that help me. Now I use them to help other women. Yeah. And so
That's
that's
absolutely
fire.
beautiful. That's quite the journey that you went on. I'm just curious as a side note, this is so irrelevant, but when you lived in Germany, did you speak German?
When I moved there, I didn't speak any German, but I learned it just through osmosis. And yeah, I speak it, read it, write it, everything. It's like a second language to me now. So, but I had to learn it when I was there. It's funny, when I was working in the hotel, right? That was the first job. And I pretended I knew German. I just knew like 5 words, really, right? But a part of why they hired me is because they had an international staff and they had never had a Canadian work for them. So they had a sweet spot for me. So they let me in. And so a year later, when I left to go live in the Italian part of Switzerland, I got a job offer in a hotel there. They had a party for me, and the head waiter who helped me taught me, right? He always called me Frau Liverpool because my maiden name is Livermore. And Frau Livermore, I remember the days I asked you for the tablecloths and you brought me the knives. Everybody laughed. So they all knew I was bluffing, but they loved me, and so they just helped me get through. And then by the time I left, I was already speaking very fluent German, and I could understand.
I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, it's a fun answer. Yeah. 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 Fake it till you make it, right? Sometimes that's the way. And that's what I did. And it worked for me. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh yeah, it
Um,
brought water to my eyes too.
yeah,
Oh,
we
that
all need
memory
a good
always,
laugh.
oh, that memory always makes me laugh with the depth of my heart. It was so sweet. Like busted. You never said anything before until the goodbye party, right? You never let on. So it's
It would have been fun
like,
to see what he was thinking in his mind.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah, it's a sweet moment.
That's nice. And
Yeah.
I think that's important to remember too, that even though we may have had a really hard journey, there's always gems and precious moments happening
Always,
throughout that.
always. And the trick is, I'm doing a series right now on mastering your triggers, master your mind, you can master your life. And the thing is that when we have these trauma triggers and moments, understanding our biology is so important because our biology is wired to survive. We lose touch with everything we know. We lose touch with everything good. We resort to negative bias. Our reticular activating system only looks for all the validation of why what we're feeling is true. And the shift is to recognize no, and everything my mind is telling me in these moments is a lie. It's based in distortion. I'm not even cognitively clear enough to be able to see truth. So I need to breathe and have practices to change that, to redirect that, so that I can start stacking all the evidence of the opposite. And that's a big mindset shift, right? And then when we do that, we see the gifts. But when we're stuck in the trauma, we don't.
Well, and it's like it's so close to you, like your breath. You just breathe and you don't know it. You have these patterns of thinking and you don't even know that you're caught up in them.
Yes, yes, they're unconscious triggers. And so it's like for me, what I understand the work is like say at the beginning of our journey, right? This is the size of our subconscious mind. This is the size of our conscious mind. The more we heal, the more we become self-aware, the ratio shifts. And then when any of these things come up or new versions of the same thing come up, because we heal in layers, we never heal all at once,
Right.
then instead of my subconscious gobbling up my conscious mind, my conscious mind can hold and contain my subconscious mind. And then that's how we gain that inner mastery. And I'm passionate about that because it's a power we all have. It's just a matter of retraining our biology, and aligning with a higher truth, however we identify and experience that truth. Yeah.
That's it, this is, I think it's the most exciting time. I mean, because I grew up in an early generation where everything was behind closed doors. You
Hmm.
didn't, and now we can kind of hang it outside on the line and we can hang up a
Hmm.
shingle and I think the more we talk about it, one, we don't feel alone.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
two, we the way I say it is, because I've interviewed almost 200 women around the world now, it's kind of a collective consciousness.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
this period of time in history is so super exciting to me because we're not only healing ourselves, we're healing seven generations back and we're healing the generations to come.
Hmm.
So I
Absolutely.
yeah, so I love, it's I always feel bad that people have to go through what they went through. I mean, I'm no exception either. But,
Hmm.
when you get to the other side of it, oh
Hmm.
my God, life becomes magical, doesn't it?
Hmm. It does, and everything opens up in a new way. So one teaching that one of my elders shared, and this really hit home for me. And at first it was kind of hard to swallow and make sense of, but so he always said that when you see somebody suffering, don't feel pity for them. Look to see the divine spark of God behind it that knows what that suffering is about and what it's teaching them. And when we give our observation is food, right? So if I give my
Mhm.
observation, my focus to the God force and the person, and I do Ho'oponopono, so I'll do Ho'oponopono or whatever focus, practice somebody has. So then here's all the noise and the suffering, but I'm looking through and I'm saying, I know there's more truth here than the surface is revealing. And I'm choosing to see your power to overcome this because you are a powerful soul beyond measure. And one of the most important things is making clear our focus is always nourishing that part of us and others. Because when we get entangled in the story, we're not contributing, we're not helping,
Right. I
right?
appreciate you. That's a great, great reminder. That's so excellent that I'm glad I said it the way I did so that you could explain that.
And thank you. And the thing is, people say, well, the world is even worse today. Well, for me, it's worse because that's what we've been doing all these centuries, entangling, entangling, entangling. So how can we be anywhere than we are when we haven't been navigating with consciousness? When our
Right.
divine, when our divine birthright of realizing we have a consciousness that we can change and that there is a higher force, right? So for me, this is the unfolding, this is the natural result of unconscious living. But it's not punishment. It's an activation to become conscious.
Exactly. And like you said, we all came here with different reasons, different purpose, and that higher self knows.
Exactly. And it's just a matter of remembering, remembering, realigning, realigning. And that's what the teaching of Ho'oponopono is really about. It's the choosing to align with the truth that I don't yet see.
Can you tell them the four prayers
Yeah,
in
so
that?
Ho'oponopono, sure. Yeah, Ho'oponopono is a conflict resolution system of Hawaii. And it goes back to 254 AD as far as the research I've done. Maybe go back further. And so Ho'oponopono is a path of recognizing that nothing happens by accident. We are a part of the universe. We're one collective. Life is a mirror, right? In the olden days, actually, of Ho'oponopono, they didn't even have the word forgiveness. It had nothing to do with forgiveness. It had to do with acceptance.
Interesting.
Huge difference. So they came in, they always had the knowledge that everything is a part of life to grow and learn and know self and to find your purpose in this existence moment by moment. But when Auntie Morna revived the Ho'oponopono in the modern world, it needed to have needed to be palatable. Our modern world would never go straight to acceptance. Never, right? It's
Right.
impossible, and understandably. So the I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you is a bridge that automatically eventually leads us to that acceptance and understanding the more we practice it. So when we do that statement, say, if I'm in conflict with part of myself, or I'm witnessing a conflict in my environment, or even the world, I'm watching the news or something, right? Instead of getting entangled in the story, I do Ho'oponopono. Because again, there's more behind the scenes than I can see.
Yeah.
And I know that the news is wired to and made to do, clickbait. If it bleeds, it leads. If it bleeds, it leads. So there's a lot of emotional control that happens through the media, which is why it's so important for us to know ourselves so that we can filter and discern and not be taken over by everything we see. Because that's what wreaks havoc in our nervous system. And that's what separates us from our soul. Right? So the whole
Yeah.
Ho'oponopono is seeing that, okay, there's more. And so when you're saying the statements, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, you're not saying it to the person, you're not saying it to yourself or the situation, you're saying it to the God force within that. And you're saying, I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the ways I've knowingly and unknowingly contributed to this pattern existing in our collective humanity. This pain patterning, this suffering patterning, this narcissism pattern, whatever it is that we're looking, because we all have an inner narcissist. It's there. It's a part of our identity, and it's an important part when it's healthy. It's only when it's unhealthy that it becomes destructive, right? So
Right.
I love you. I'm sorry for the ways I've knowingly and unknowingly contributed to the creation of or the existence of this situation. Please forgive me for the ways I've knowingly and unknowingly persisted in keeping this pattern going through my own reactivities, through my own triggers, or maybe even through ancestry. There's so many layers of consciousness. There's a field of consciousness, and we're all a part of it. So basically, I'm surrendering to the divine I don't know. In Hawaii, they call it holo holo. And I love that because it makes me think of Rolos. I love Rolos chocolate, right? When I was a kid. So I like to bring humor into, you need to have a bit of humor in this process. Otherwise it gets too darn heavy and too darn hard to get through, right? So
Right.
holo means I don't know. And it's not the self-deprecating I don't know, it's that I don't know. I have to acknowledge I don't know all the underworkings of what I am seeing and what I'm experiencing. So I'm willing to align to see that there is a truth that is beyond me in this moment. And I'm just going to surrender to that and let it go rather than create my own qualifications and stories and, qualifying it and naming and, that are made out of the limited perceptions of my mind and what my mind has experienced. And I haven't experienced enough to really be able to say, what is absolutely true. I can say, this could be, where does it resonate? But but the thing is when we get triggered into those places, we think we know the absolute truth and it's a lie. We don't.
Right.
And so we have to acknowledge that lie. We don't know. And we have to acknowledge the truth. I'm a part of this collective. So I have a power in this moment to help clean that energy up through doing the Ho'oponopono. Whatever is in me, in my environment, my ancestry, this is an opportunity to clean. This is an opportunity to bring love and the God frequency into the situation so that it can unfold. And I have witnessed miracles in my own life. And I've had two mothers that came different times, different years, that were estranged from their daughters. Literally 20 minutes after the session, both of them, their daughters contacted them.
I love it.
And they were like mind blown. And I was like mind blown, because we are all connected in an instant on frequency and the level of frequency.
That's beautiful.
So I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a part of this creation. Please forgive me for the ways I've helped unknowingly and unknowingly prevailing it, keeping it going, right? And thank you, because thank you, we know it is a universal law beyond religion. You ask, you receive. You knock, the door shall open. It does. It's the law. It's a foundational law of the universe. And so in that, we surrender. We surrender to, okay, it is done. because we know where our attention goes, our energy flows, and that's what grows. That's a Hawaiian principle, makia. And that's a little tidbit of Ho'oponopono. It's very powerful, very beautiful work. I've been practicing for 11 years. I was initiated by my Kahuna elder. No, actually, I've been practicing it longer. I was initiated 11 years ago. Yeah, so as teacher and healer in his lineage, his is in his wife's lineage, and then I have the permission to share these teachings in this way. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, I know it on a very superficial level. So thank you for sharing in depth with us a little bit more, just like
Just a
you
little bit more.
said.
It goes even more deeper. Like there's eight principles that underlie what the ability to really understand Ho'oponopono and to practice it. But even just that layer is enough to to bring movement. We don't need to know
Exactly.
we don't need to know everything. We just need to know enough that makes the shift into a congruent alignment with the light and love. That's all we need. And then love and light teaches us the rest.
That's beautiful. I that thank you. That's all I can say is thank you. And that's what's so exciting about this because there's so many different paths to healing.
Mhm.
And yours is a very unique one. And
Yes.
so I appreciate that you're here. And I'm sure there's people listening that really want to connect with you and want to learn more. So, how could they get in touch with you and what do you have going on right now?
So they can get in touch with me through my email address. I founded an institute for personal transformation. It's called Soul Spectives Institute. And so it's about rising above the mind and the stories into the soul spective view, like an astronaut's view, to be able to see what's going on. And Ho'oponopono is a key element in that. I teach many different things. So Soul Spectives Institute, can I put it in the chat?
Oh, we're going to put it above this interview
Okay.
and in the comments.
Okay,
Absolutely.
beautiful. So
Yeah.
soulspectiveinstitute.com, or my retreat center is info@serenitybythesea.com. So those are my two main websites. And so right now I have monthly coaching packages, and I'm working on actually a mini one so people can just sort of dip their toes in. So I'm in the process of creating just a 6 session package. So a 6 week package so people can explore, feel how it resonates, and then if they want to go on to more, then they can. And so that's in the works right now. I'm also in the works of creating my own app. So and the app, yeah, so the app was inspired because I want to be able to stay connected with my clients that come here for the retreat center, right? And I want them to be able to connect to each other. So it's a way to keep the connection going without having to invest in a big coaching package, right? Where there'll be live webinars and there'll be, hot seats, where I will coach people right on the spot too there. And so that's in the process as well. So that's another one. And the other thing that's in the process is my next book. So that's coming out hopefully in the next few months. And that's all about how to rewire our brain through the Hawaiian principles, how to heal, and going deeper into the Ho'oponopono. So that's a lot.
It is. It is. Well, it is a lot. It is a
Yeah.
lot. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. It's
Mm.
it's the next step in the journey, you know?
And exciting too. I was inspired. I made my first Oracle affirmation deck.
Oh,
And
fun.
so yeah, it's so fun. I'm just gonna grab it. I'll show you a picture.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have to get them sized. I printed these ones out myself. I just had the card box made, and then I'm going to have these sized. So this is one of the cards.
Oh,
This is what,
beautiful.
and so this one, it says, I embrace my inner power. I trust in the endless possibilities that await as I step into my fullest potential. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's beautiful.
that's one of them. And so these are the cards. And there's a special story behind this because the image of the rose that I'm using, when I drop my son off to school, when I'm in the city, because he goes to school in the city and I'm there a few days a week, there's a rose bush beside the cafe that I always get a coffee and my favorite scone. And I always say hi. I always smell them. And then one day I saw this perfect rose that had fallen. It had been beheaded without even a stem. but it still looked beautiful and fresh on it. It had just fallen perhaps. And because it didn't have a stem, I thought, I don't know if it's going to survive, but I put it in some water right away and I brought it home and she continued to bloom
Oh, wow.
2 weeks,
Oh, wow.
even without a stem. So I immortalized that beautiful rose that's giving the example from nature that even if it feels your stem is torn apart and broken, your soul, there's a part of your essence that can still absorb light, that can still grow. And so that's the image behind the card. Yeah. So it's very, 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 very fun and I love it. Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Well, I would be too. Absolutely. Well, when they get published, we'll be sure to put a link. We'll go back and add a link where people
Beautiful.
can find out how to get these beautiful
Thank
oracle
you.
cards.
That would be
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
before we go today, is there any last parting words of wisdom that you would like to share with us?
Be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace. We're healing generations of trauma, generations of disconnection from our essence and our source. And give grace to other people too. Right now, we are in such a heightened, everybody's nervous system is like ready to pop. And if we who have a little bit more awareness, one Sufi master once said to me, the one with more awareness is the one that has to lead, right? Not
Right.
demand other people meet us. No, we have to lead. And we lead by doing our inner work so that we're not feeding that stress, so that we can be an instrument of peace. Like St. Francis says, that's how we become an instrument of peace, by bringing ourselves into our alignment. And being in alignment doesn't mean I'm never going to be triggered. It doesn't mean I'm never going to be angry or sad. But what
Right.
it means is that when it arises, I can alchemize it into something useful and beneficial. Because
And
there's
you
no,
have the tools to do it.
yeah, and there's no trigger without a teaching.
Well, I don't think you ever get it finished and you never get it done, as
But it's
Abraham
never
would
about,
say.
but that's the thing, it's not about being finished and done. It's not
Right.
about, it's not about that. And that's another one of those mind, memes that we get locked in and we think there's a finish line. No, every moment that we exist, we're still alive is a finish line. We made it through, you know, and to let it be, the adventure that life is meant to be. Like the difference between one of the beautiful differences I love between the, the more older Mongolian and other Native American shamanism versus the Hawaiian, and both have their value, right? Not to negate one or just both have essential elements that are needed. But what I love about the Hawaiian one is instead of being the way of the warrior, it's called the way of the adventurer.
I like that.
And that there was a time the way of the warrior matched me because I needed to find my inner warrior. But there was a moment when I needed to retire that warrior in that way. And that's when I found Hawaii and the way of the adventurer. And the way of the adventure is all about meeting, alchemizing, adapting, moving like water, like Bruce Lee said, become water, right? And the Hawaiian teachings really help build and enable that ability in us to do that. That's why I'm so passionate about them. Everything I've learned from so many schools, but when I found Hawaii and their wisdom, it's like everything I ever learned that was here, 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 all came together. And they have through the 8 principles, there's a very clear, simple, common sense delivery system to impart this wisdom that I've worked with people from every walk of life, major CEOs, moms, teens, you know, it applies because it is just true. Truth resonates and it should be simple. And truth is really simple when we get down to it. Yeah.
That's
So
beautiful. Well,
yeah.
if you resonate with Luana, just please feel free to reach out. Like we said, we'll put her contact information above this interview and down in the comments. And Luana, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much too. It was a real pleasure, a lot of fun and good depth, good humor, good thoughts, all the stuff that we need, like daily nourishment. We need this kind of thing every day. Yeah, to keep us.
Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for reaching out and thank you for having me here. And God bless everybody here. And I love you, Sword. Please forgive me. Thank you. Into the field of everybody, right? We're all working through so much. So wishing everybody, the greatest grace and blessings for your journeys. Yeah.
Thank you.